r/AskReddit, which teacher you had in school made you go F it, I'll learn by myself? The one that constantly interjected with his conspiracy bullshit about 9/11, JFK, global warming, etc. That class became nap time. Took me too long to realize that I was wasting my time trying to decipher all the jargon my math teacher was using in his lessons. With a quick YouTube search I figured out how to do what he was teaching in 10 minutes. I have no idea why he made it so complicated. I had to, but oddly enough I don't remember either of their names. One was an elderly history teacher that would meander off and talk about stuff that had nothing to do with the lesson's topic, sometimes not even history at all. The second one was a politics teacher that kept clearing his throat. I counted them once. He cleared his throat 63 times in a 45-minute lesson. It was driving me nuts. Fortunately neither asked many questions in class or wrote much on the blackboard, so I could just plug my ears with my fingers under my hair and read the textbook. My high school math teacher. Every time we had class with her she would always on average make 3-5 mistakes on math problems. The most annoying part of this is that it was advanced mathematics, so naturally our math problems were hard and required huge equations in which she would make mistakes in. As a result we kept wasting time on redoing them and correcting her mistakes constantly in class. Everything math related, and how to play the clarinet. 7th grade math. The teacher had my not so nice sibling the year before. I got C from it. I called her out on it and got no support in learning. No real teaching was done for me. She had a parent-teacher conference and suggested I may need to repeat or do summer learning. I was constantly in trouble for minor things. I was sent to the office and or detention if I accused her of unfair treatment. I said screw it and I just read my own textbook and did all the practices and taught myself. I passed and excelled at the state's standardized test. I was in the advanced placement class the next year against her recommendation and to her annoyance. My math teacher, who skipped a lot of topics because we weren't an advanced level course and none of us would use it later anyways. I now study physics at university. My trade teacher, she was a nut. I actually liked her though. It's just sometimes she would get stuck on her own notes sometimes while she was staring down at the projector trying to figure out what was going on. I would go grab a textbook and look up the unit and I would raise my hand and kind of help her along. Oh ho ho, we had a philosophy teacher, who was supposed to teach physics. Granted he wasn't the only teacher, but still. Literally watched Khan Academy on the same topic during his lecture. Got an A in finals I might add. 8th grade math teacher. It was her last year till retirement, and she rarely taught us anything. We just sat in the class all day and did nothing. So I learned it on my own. I was one of the few people in that class getting decent grades and I'm fin proud of it. English. The teacher was such a bitch and refused to help. I hated this language until I changed school and started browsing English sites and then watching stuff with English subtitles. History. I just had a res teacher. She wasn't interested. Why would I be? Hardcore history changed all that. Especially Wrath of the Khans. My EM teacher taught about 4% of the syllabus and it came to revising and I was like what the F, she didn't teach this. And what she didn't teach was on the test. The only people who done well were ones who studied extra in their free time. Never actually set homework either. That was the stuff we didn't do. She handed us CPY practice tests that she marked incorrectly. I had a Spanish teacher in high school who would tell us about her love life during class, like how rich her new boyfriend was and whether her kid liked him or not. Then she dated the gym teacher for a while. She put pics of them together in the classroom and he would sometimes come into our class in the morning with pastries for her. Super awkward and a waste of time for us. I learned a lot of Spanish myself that year. Most of the teachers I have right now. Love how the majority is math teachers, lol mayo. I've currently got a statistics teacher and she explained the method of doing a question by asking another student who got the question right to send their workings as a picture on the class chat for the ones that didn't get it. Pulled a reverse card and made the students teach themselves. I know, just go to friend or the internet for clarification. Analytical math teacher. The smart kid I'd been through school with ended up reteaching the class everything the teacher had fucked up. She just took a long hour break every day we'd come in and we actually learned from this kid instead of her and no one complained. Thank God for the brainiacs who definitely know their stuff. My 7th grade math teacher was new to the school from China. I think the kids in China act differently as he was not prepared to deal with all the sassy and judgy girls in my class. He also could not teach and would just send us videos of what we were supposed to learn. Whenever we asked a question he would just say you should know that already even if it was something totally new. Or he would tell us to just go to math clinic, which was an extra help session in mornings before school where the other teachers would be there to help us. Like, you should first try to teach us before telling us to come on our own time. None. All of the classes I took were taught by competent teachers. My teacher when I was in Y4 was really lazy and never prepared our lessons properly. She just downloaded really outdated worksheets from the internet and wouldn't do her research. Anyway, I was quite a studious, hardworking pupil, so this really annoyed me, but I also didn't want to say anything, until she gave us a truly awful history lesson. It was on the Romans, and she clearly knew nothing about the topic. She was making most of the information up, and laughing it off. However, every time she said something incorrect, I would correct her, and it drove her nuts. I think the last straw was when she gave us a worksheet. It was from the 90s, while the lesson was taking place in the 2010s, and some of the dates were wrong, so I corrected them for the whole class. I remember that history lesson with pride. By the way, I'm not one of those annoying know-it-all students. The reason I knew a lot about history was because my dad has a PhD in history and my mum has a degree in archaeology and classical civilizations. We're one of those really academic families where you kind of have to be good at academics. So my teacher didn't really have a chance. Every college engineering professor I ever had. I gave up with my physics teacher after he spent 2 lessons explaining something and I still didn't understand. I looked in the textbook and understood it by just reading 2 pages in under 10 minutes. Everything he explained was so convoluted and used so many metaphors that you couldn't follow what he was saying. The one that got caught with lots of child pornography on his computer. High school English teacher. Between telling us she became a teacher because she couldn't hack it as a lawyer and I quote, "We're not reading Lord of the Flies because I'd have to teach you what it means. Isn't that your freaking job, woman?" Also she pulled me aside just to tell me she felt bad for me. Why? I don't know, I just do. I'd like to say she's the devil incarnate, but I imagine she couldn't hack it at that either. My French teacher, she would always freak out on the littlest things and punish the whole class for it, even if it was one person. We got no French done at all in that class and I ended up looking through the textbooks. That sorta helped, but next year we got a much nicer teacher when 6th grade rolled around. This was in 4th grade. Fine art prep long-term sub. Couldn't have dropped the class because I needed it to continue on to the more advanced art classes. You don't need to teach high schoolers that red plus yellow equals orange. I just feel bad for the half of the kids who didn't have any way to get another fine art credit, need one to graduate, but band, chorus, orchestra, theater counts as one. Today I'll be drawing a day 0 recreation of a shenanigan before I take on an online course for professional drawing. Wish me luck. Physics teacher didn't believe in the Big Bang and refused to teach it. Emma Masterson. History teacher 70 plus years old. He clearly loved history but was absolutely terrible at teaching it. We just blindly read chapter to chapter, no taking down notes or anything to help us revise. He also watched P on YouTube, which was awkward to see essential in his search history. I had a science teacher that would come into the classroom, write page numbers on the board, P 34-38, sit down and read the paper. If you raised your hand it would be up for the entire class. He never looked up from the paper. If you approached his desk he would tell you to sit down and use your brain. No labs, no experiments, no discussions, no presentations. The class made the decision to teach each other in the library without informing him. The principal questioned us and we told him we were taking our education into our own hands due to his lack of teaching. For the next couple months we never attended his class and we wrote the final exam in the library open book because we were in charge of our education. Our music teacher was a total bitch. She only had time for the kids who were already good at music and treated the rest of us like S, whether we were interested in learning or not. I got a top grade in my group and solo exams, but it had absolutely nothing to do with her. It would be my Comp C teacher. She was teaching us C++ and I struggled to even understand as she was asking us to memorize things like binary sort, linked list etc. without explaining about it. Before the finals, I said F it and asked my cousin who had a master's in computer science to teach me. It was a day-night difference as my cousin helped me ace problems logically and write code. Got 82% when I was failing miserably in all the class tests. I watched 30 minutes worth of Khan Academy vids that the teacher aimed. Still didn't get it. I googled it, got a suggested clip of like 70 seconds. Understood it perfectly. My math professor in college. It wasn't that he was bad in any regard, I don't think, but I could not decipher his thick accent for the life of me. So I learned off YouTube. Algebra tutor teacher, she always taught way too fast so she could get all the material in, and if you didn't understand you had to go in after school. Well, I have sports so I just said F it, I'm not going. My Algebra 2 teacher. I took algebra and geometry at the same time in 8th grade and the teacher didn't really help me so I struggled and fell behind. I went to tutoring that summer and caught up but still had a difficult time. I thought my Algebra 2 teacher would be better but it turns out she's a crotchety old woman who gets mad when we ask questions or takes too long to solve problems. I started going to tutoring again and at that point pretty much only learn from the tutor. I'm not stupid, I'm actually good at math and plan on going into the engineering field, but I just had a string of bad teachers. We gave him a past year exam question to explain. It came out the direct previous year, in which he literally told us that he would have discussed with his colleagues, other teachers, for clarification. I realized this post doesn't have the not me but story yet, so here we go. My father is Peruvian, so school's not the best, and they had English lessons with a really sty but cool dude. He said that English wasn't important and they would never use it, and they would never leave the country, cause they were really poor, so he didn't teach the kids anything. But the school would catch up with him and get him fired if everybody passed with perfect grades. So when test day comes, he would just throw the papers up in the air and if it landed on your table, pass. If not, you're fed. Turns out you need to know English if you work at tourism-focused store, so he's learning it now, all by himself. Edit. Sorry for my funky English BTW. Brazilian why no? Like, 95% of medical school. My maths teacher had an accent I didn't understand.